Shalom, gentlemen. Okay, chapters 24 and 25 of the Holy Sefer Tanya. Um, we are basically at the end of this whole section of chapters from chapter 18, and chapter 25 is the siyum of these 8 chapters, 18, 19, 20, 21, yeah, so 8 chapters. This is what the Rebbe referred to at the very beginning of the book as the short way. So if you look, if you open onto the sharp, he says, okay, we look at Meluka Mapi Soifrim, Sfanim Pi Soifrim, Koche Elyoin. In the use of al pasuk, it's founded on the pasuk. Ki kov elecha davar moed. This thing is very close to you. Beficha ulevavcha la'asoisoi. It's in your mouth, in your heart to do. Ve'hetiv eichu karov moed b'derech arucha v'derech katsara. Be'ezras Hashem Yisborach. So I'm coming, says the Rebbe, to explain to you how it's very close to you, the long way and the short way. The long way was chapters 16 and 17. And the short way, ironically, is the 8 chapters after that. So the long way took a lot less to explain, and the short way took a lot more to explain. The long way, in short, just as some fun, is basically get your head out of shtuyot, put your head into the right things, in the right way, with hasmada, with genuine bikush dedication, and you will start seeing your whole inner world start to transform and become more godly. That's the long-term project. And you're not part of, we're not part of from that. That means you're Jewish. Yeah, Jewish meaning that you are now chayav to just tell my phone, I'm sorry. You are chayav to be involved in the right learning that is actually going to transform your inner world. That's the long way, okay? And that's years and years of work. The short way, we're just finishing right now. So I'll explain it very quickly. It basically breaks down into kind of 4 sections. Okay, chapters 18 and 19, the Rebbe established that you would give up your life rather than bow to an idol. Okay. Chapters 20, 21, 22 were concerning Yichud Hashem and trying to explain to us al pi seichel how ein od milvadoi. There is only God, and nothing changed from before creation to after creation, comparable to a single word, compared to lots of different mashalim, etc. And then chapters 23, if you remember last week, 23 is a real what's the word? It's a real hisboinenus session where we explained what happens when you do mitzvahs, what happens when you learn Torah, the different levels of yichud that takes place. In either case, although we did delineate the nuance in the difference between learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, soif kol soif, the yichud that the yid is privy to is intense, is profound, is very, very big. That was chapter 23. 24, 25 is going to explain basically how every Aveira, no matter how big or small, is avodah zarah. And if you're prepared to give up your life, not to bow to an idol, then why would it be that you would bow? Why would it be that you'd do an Aveira? That's basically the short way. It's a very powerful, it sounds like kind of babyish way you've said it in a sense, but it's not at all. It's incredibly powerful and a sophisticated way of thinking, a mindset, or whatever you want to call it, a logical construct that basically relies on the fact that human beings by nature want to be consistent. We want to have integrity, we want to be consistent. And that's what we're relying on. So the Rebbe's Eitzah to stay away from Aveiras is not punishment. It is not punishment. That does not work. It does not work according to what I've understood from Lubavitch, from Chabad, that the Ikka way of being saved from Averas is playing on your need to have integrity, to be consistent in your philosophy with your actions. And the more we can sink in with that, the more we will be matzliach in our avodas Hashem, be'ezrat Hashem. Okay.
Am I hearing a little semblance of asay tov? If you don't want to do stormei ra, do asay tov. Is that like stay away from doing bad by just you're saying integrity by filling your time with good?
No. He's not saying that at all. He's saying, the way I understand it, he's saying you would give up your life rather than bow to an idol. If the Hamas guy came up to you, put a gun to your head and said, bow to this idol or I'll kill you, yeah, you would let him kill you. Now, if that's the case, and we're going to establish now that every Aveira is Avodah Zarah Mamash, not just a Bechina of, it's Avodah Zarah Mamash. If you would give up your life to not bow to the idol, then how on earth could you even contemplate doing an Aveira? That's it. It's a very simple logic.
Didn't we already say this in Cuff Base?
So we not like he's going to say it now. Now he's going to say it much stronger. But we did more than hint to it. Yeah, you're right. So now we've created two levels to Hashem's Ratzon. We've got Panemia's Ratzon and Chitzonius Ratzon. Panemia's Ratzon is things that he wants for themselves. Yeah, like your children. Your children are Panemia's Ratzon. Yeah, you want them for yourselves. They want them for themselves. There's no reason why we want to have children. Anything that's reasonless is your pneumius aratzon. Whenever you can attach a reason to why you're doing something, that's chitzonius aratzon. Why are you setting your alarm clock? You would not turn around and say, I don't know, so I need to wake up in the morning. Yeah, that's called chitzonius aratzon. So there's pneumius aratzon and chitzonius aratzon. But now we're introducing a new thing called Hafchus haratzon. Hafchus, the opposite. That's not pneumius haratzon, that's not chitzonius haratzon, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of Ratzon Hashem. That is called an Aveira. An Aveira is not chitzonius haratzon. A piece of meat, a piece of kosher meat, and a piece of and a glass of kosher Chalav Yisrael milk, that's chitzonius haratzon. He doesn't want meat for itself. He wants, he wants a yid to eat meat on Shabbos, but the meat itself is something, it's a means to an end. He doesn't really want that. And he doesn't want a glass of kosher milk as well. But when it gets mixed together and a yid eats it, chas v'shalom, that is hafchus haratzon. That's not chitzonius haratzon, that's the opposite of Hashem's ratzon. As such, that is the ultimate distance from the Ribono Shel Olam. See, we learned in chapter 23 that when somebody does mitzvahs or learns Torah, they're either a makova to Hashem, like a body is to a soul, or they're mamash echad in like learning Torah. When somebody's involved in Aveira, it's the exact opposite mamash. He is betachlis hapirud. Betachlis hapirud, and that is called Avodah Zarah. It's interesting, just a little cute thing that I noticed is Ein Sof is Aleph Samach. Yeah, it's always Rosh Hashanah Aleph Samach. Sitra Achra is backwards. It's Rosh Hashanah Samach Aleph. Just a cute little thing that I noticed. Anyway, so that's the opposite. That's the lowest level. See, the lowest level. What the Rebbe goes on to explain here is the lowest level in creation is Sitra Achra and Klipa. And they are intimately aware of the Ribono Shel Olam. Sitra Achra and Klipa is not a physical, it doesn't have physicality to it. Yeah, it becomes embodied in physicality, but it's a concept, as an inyan, it's a ruchniistic inyan. As such, it's very aware of God. So it's really summarized by what Bilam says. Bilam said, "Lo oichu la'avo es pi Hashem." Bilam kept saying to Balak, "Yeah, I can't go against what Hashem says. I'm going to try. Let's try it from here. Let's try this. Let's do that. Yeah, but I just can't go against him. I'm powerless to go against him." They call him the God of gods. Yeah, the Avodah Zarah, Klipa Sitra Achra, calls Hashem the God of gods, meaning he's not Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad means there's nothing else. There's no other power Bechlal. What the Sitra Achra claims is, yeah, God is the ultimate power, but I have my own agenda. I have some kind of purpose outside of the Creator. We're striving, everything we're striving for, Bezrat Hashem, is to just constantly see our lives in context of the Creator. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we don't think that we've got any kind of purpose unto ourselves. We don't. There is only one agenda. That's called Ratzon Hashem. That's all there is. Everything else that we want that isn't under that umbrella of Ratzon Hashem is Klipa Sitra Achra Avodah Zarah, whatever you want to call it. But the point is that the Klipa and the Sitra Achra, they have their own agenda, but they can't actually go against Hashem, just like Bilam. He wanted to go against Hashem, but he knew that he couldn't. He just couldn't do that. So the Rebbe basically goes on to say that a person who is over on an Aveira, a Yid who does an Aveira, falls much further from Hashem than even the Klipa of Avodah Zarah. He becomes the lowest of the low mamash. Like Shais Taub explained it like this: is like, this guy joins a gang of crazy, whatever jihadists, yeah, and they're like, when he comes in, they're like, whoa, I never, they're like shocked by his that's the inyan of a Yid doing an Aveira. A Yid doing an Aveira actually falls to the lowest level of all of creation. That's what the Rebbe calls, he explains in the Gemara, is a Yitush. A Yitush, I think they translate it as a mosquito, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. But the inyan of a Yitush, this is a very deep point, we can have a whole show on this by itself, is a Yitush is machnis v'eina moitzi. He doesn't go to the bathroom. So the lowest level, oh, you're together, Yol and Avi, okay. The lowest level of creation is a creature that eats but doesn't even go to the bathroom. Going to the bathroom is some level of nesina, of some level of giving. And that's called Halig. Halig is giving. Halig is giving. And sometimes you have to receive to give. But Halig means to give. So the lowest creature in all of creation is the Yitush, who's machnis v'eina moitzi. And a Yid who does an Aveira, he falls below that level in the hishtaushlos of his receiving. So he's receiving from the haraim of the Rebbeinu Shalom. He becomes so distant from Hashem, it's amazing. Literally the most distant thing. He says more distant from all the Chayas Atameus, Chayas Ros, Ramashim, Shkatzim, Avodah Zarah itself. Avodah Zarah itself. You end up further. That's what an Aveira is. So comes out, like we just said, how can it be that a sin's possible? if we know that we're prepared to die to be Makadosh Shem Shemayim, we're prepared to die rather than bow to the idol. And now we've learned that doing Averas, we end up more distant than if we were to have bowed, or the idol itself, the actual Inyan of the Avodah Zarah. How can it be that we do an Avera? And this, the answer, the Rebbe answers famously. I'll just quote from the Gemara. Reish Lakish Omer, Ein Adam Oive Avera Ele Imke Nichnas Boy Ruachstus. Shnema Ish Ki Sister Ishtoi Tishtaksiv. A woman who strays, sister, a woman who strays. That's the Indian of the Sota, that a man isn't over unless it enters him a ruach shtus. Yeah, what's a ruach shtus? Everyone has a guess at what a ruach shtus is.
I would say it's your emotions totally taking over, but
so you're miscovering to the deeper idea. We'll talk about that. But the Pashut way of saying it, the first
momentary lapse of reason, temporary insanity.
Yeah, a temporary insanity. The most basic one is a temporary insanity. It's just meant you lost it. You just went nuts. And we think, well, that's weird, yeah, but I'll tell you something. It's the same craziness that stops us from spending time with our children. We know how precious our children are, yeah? We'd give everything for them. We'd give everything for them, yeah? And we can't even, break ourselves away from the office to spend an extra, to spend some extra time with them. That's a rush. That is a temporary insanity, mamash. That's a temporary insanity, mamash. The fact that we are so ideologically connected to our children, but practically for us to actually spend time with them is not as that's a disconnect. That's a disconnect. Okay, but that's true, 100% true. But Ruach Shtus, another way that I've learned it, which is much deeper, and it's going to resonate with everybody who's reading this book, the Reclaiming Sanity book that we're reading, is this idea. Ruach, like Yoel said, Ruach is bechinas emotions. Yeah, we have nefesh, ruach, neshama. Nefesh is behavior. Ruach is emotions. Neshama is intellect. Ruach is always emotions. Shtus is loshen shoiter, loshen shita. Shita is the inyan of an ideology that you have merged. The ideology is like the wrong word in this context, but I can't think of an English word with it. But it's the inyan of a deep merging of my sense of self with X. That's Shita. So a Ruach Shtus is the inyan, like what Yoel said, is where you've identified with the emotions so much that it's no longer a voice inside your head saying, Shmuel, go and eat the sandwich. Shmuel, go and eat the sandwich. It's now a voice inside the head or inside the heart, whatever, going, I want the sandwich. I want the sandwich. There's a big difference between a voice trying to tempt you by saying, Shmuel, eat the sandwich, assuming it's a non-kosher sandwich, and the voice in your head saying, I want the sandwich. Very, very big difference. The difference is distance. The difference is distance. We've spoken about this many times. But this inyan of when the nichnas, and it's nichnas boy, ruach shtus, that this ruach shtus, meaning that the emotions become so identified with the taiva that who is there to say no? There's no one to say no. You with me? That's a very, to understand this is a very deep idea, it's a very liberating idea. Like I say, I'm very careful to say this with my Loshem, and I'm feeling like, when you sometimes just feel like you want to just scream kick and just feel, everything's horrible. So instead of saying I feel horrible or I'm angry or whatever, you say like there's a feeling of anger in me, or there's this feeling of constriction inside me. Make a distance between you and it changes everything. It's so liberating. It changes everything by creating that distance. I'm not angry. There's anger in me. Now there's a conversation to be had. Now there's a Pesach out of the anger. Kozman, I'm angry. I'm angry. Well, I mean, if you're angry, that means you've become anger. So this is very profound. Letting go of the anger would be like killing yourself, because you are anger. So if I let go of the anger, then what happened to me? I'm dead. There's no me. I can't let go of the anger. In fact, I want more anger. Anger wants more anger. Constriction wants more constriction. So Kozman, you are the emotion. Yeah, you're in. You have to try and go to bed or something. Drink something or whatever. You have to extract yourself, because it's just otherwise there's no conversation to be had. So that's the Inyan of Rosh Hashanah on a deeper level. It is an insanity and it is you lose your thing. But what's very comforting to know is that the Rosh Hashanah only goes up to what level in the soul?
Ruach.
Up to where it actually goes further than Ruach. It goes up to Bina, meaning, and this is a very important point, Bina is your analytical mind, your thinking mind. So that identification with emotions can overtake your thinking mind, and it does. Gosh, it does, as we see. Yeah, you start thinking about. You start. What's the word? Not thinking. You start. Not fantasizing. What's the word?
Obsessing.
Obsessing. Thank you. You start obsessing about how you're feeling, etc., etc. Yeah, that's Bina, and that very much gets hijacked, and that starts feeding back into the whole thing, and it's a whole big loop of a system that just makes you feel worse and worse and worse. But it's only ad Bina. It doesn't get to Chochmah. And that's why a man would give up his life rather than bow to the idol. Because when the man sees, when a Yid sees on a visceral level, a break in his connection to the Ribono Shel Olam, and there's no way of wiggling around it, yeah, which is what bowing to the idol is, then the Chochmah of his neshama, so to speak, which is not affected by the Ruach Shtus, flares up, and silences the Ruach Shtus, or vanishes it, vanquishes it, or dissolves it, whatever you say, and that's how we're able to give up our lives rather than bow to the idol. So that's basically this idea of what it is that can make us, that can allow us to do the Aveira. Whereas when it comes to bowing to the idol, which is exactly the same thing as an Aveira, we wouldn't be able to do it. Because when the soul sees clearly a breach in the Yichud Hashem, the Chochmah of the soul is catalyzed, or whatever, wakes up is the lashon he uses, and that dissolves, that breaks the rest of the Ruach just from lower down, and that allows a person to actually give up his life. Whereas he wouldn't give up his life rather than the taiva that he has. He'd rather do the taiva than not give up his life. He'd rather do the taiva, whatever it is, the Aveira, than let go of that. It's funny, he uses the Rebbe uses that, like the lashon, that giving up the taiva is Yisurim Kalim, to like being tortured to death. Meaning they're actually on the same scale. They're quantitatively different, but the idea of being tortured to death and giving up a taiva and not indulging in a certain aveira that you want to indulge in are actually very comparable. It's quite amazing. That's how hard it is to give up your taivas. to not press that click, to not click that thing on the computer and see that thing, yeah, is comparable to being tortured to death. Comparable. That's quite amazing. So that gives you a real incentive to not do it. Even though it's hard, that gives you a tremendous incentive to actually be oimed the Nisayon. It's mamash like being tortured to death for Hashem. That's what Rebbe Akiva was. Rebbe Akiva was so besimcha at the end of his life because he got to experience that. He had ascended to such a level where Oineg and Sar had become just experience. So to him, it wasn't much. Yeah. Okay. So the Rebbe basically explains now. He goes a little bit further and he says, I hate reading this bit in the Tanya, but he describes what it means when a person does an Aveira, what he's actually doing, because the Nefesh Lakis is being dragged into that Aveira. The Klippa is referred to as Tsoya and Kia, which is like excrement and sick. And he says that when a person's doing an Aveira, it's like taking the head of the king and putting it into the base Kisei, which is Malay Tsoya and Kia. He mamash says those words. It's very difficult to read, but that's the analogy that he paints for us. So that's basically chapter 24 in a nutshell. And then 25, he goes on and he ties it up. Like we already tied it together anyway, but I'll just say it over again. He basically explains that you're desperate to be consistent. Like the craziest thing, the most difficult thing to deal with, like one of the most difficult things to deal with is when one of your kids is a hypocrite. You know, when he won't do something and then you'll see him shouting at his brothers and sisters for doing the exact same thing that he will never do. Or, yeah, we see that all the time, yeah? To deal with hypocrisy is just, it's just so, it goes against us. It goes against the very mahus of being a human being. Hypocrisy is ridiculous. Hypocrisy is ridiculous. So the Rebbe is really calling on our intolerance for hypocrisy. And he's saying, you know, meditate on this. You really care about the Ribono Shel Olam. You really do. To the point where, like we said, if push came to shove, you would give up your life rather than do something that contradicts Yiddishkeit on an outward level, like if you're forced into it. And he explains that means that just like this separation, you can't tolerate and you would give up your life for. So make sure that you're very clear on the fact that every single Aveira, that includes all the Rabbanans as well, every single Aveira is an exact same period as actually bound to Avodah Zarah. And I was going to say, 1 minute, something just slipped down my head. One moment. Yeah. So this is, by the way, this is a very kind of break glass in emergency kind of mindset, but it is good to have in the back of your mind to create a binary form of Yiddishkeit. To have in the back of your mind that Yiddishkeit is actually binary. I know it isn't, and we're moving towards Hashem, and there's gradations, and there's so much gray area, and we're growing, etc., etc. Yeah. Okay, that's nice and it's true, but it's helpful also to get binary. So, like, I'll tell you, I'll just give you a very personal example for me that will, when you go binary, just to show how helpful binary is. Binary means on, off, 0, 1, yes, no, can, can't, no middle ground, no gray area, no maybe,
Male, female.
male, female, exactly, without the LGBTQP. It keeps going on and on, yeah. So I have an online school of photography, yeah. And when you sell things online, you have like a little graph that when you make money, it goes up, yeah. You come down in the morning, if it peaked, you made some money. So those graphs, I don't know if anyone has that kind of, I mean, a lot of people nowadays have these kind of graphs, yeah. But anybody who has a graph like that knows the tiver to look at that graph. It's almost, not even almost, it's irresistible. You will look at that graph hundreds of times a day, literally hundreds of times. It's not like getting likes on Facebook. That's pretty hard to not look at as well, yeah. But we're talking about real money. When it goes up, that's hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars. And you know, how do you manage that? How do you not look at that hundreds of times a day? That was this conundrum that I was faced with for years. I just didn't know how to, like, what, because you have to look at it sometimes. You can't never look at it. But then how do you make, so then eventually a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I came up with this idea and it's just been perfect. I said, if it's dark outside, if it's night, I'm allowed to look at it. If it's daytime, I'm not allowed to look at it. That's it. Binary. So there's like a 20-minute gap in the middle of the day where I makel because it's like shkia. Yeah. Otherwise,
And you're also looking at it a lot more at night, in the wintertime.
Yeah, I'm out of the office anyway, so I don't mind. But anyway, but the fact is that when you make things binary, it's like everyone knows it's much easier to say no to the first cookie than it is to say no to the second cookie. That's just the, you know, that's a klal in my sabracious. So when you make things binary, it's like it's a godsend. It's mamash, an incredibly powerful tool in our Avodas Hashem in any facet of life. Make things binary. Get rid of the gray area. And if there's going to be a couple of, you know, if something's going to get compromised every now and again because there's no gray area, okay, so it's a victim of the war, and you know, it's a civilian casualty. We'll deal with that. We'll get over that. But it will give you koyach. It will give you the tools to actually be oimed and asayon in a very real way. And this is really what the Rebbe is telling us. Make Yiddishkeit binary. Mitzvah is ultimate his kashrus to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Whether you're a makava, you're like a goof to a neshama, or whether you're mamash echad with him mamash, in a very right is the exact opposite. You become so distant from him that you're even farther than Chayos Ros, Avodah Zara, and even a Yitush, Mamash, Ramashim, and Shkotzim. That's binary. How much more binary can you get? That's about as binary as it gets. So that's really the Rebbe's answer. Turn Yiddishkeit black and white. And he never talks about Gehenna. He never mentions Gehenna Bechlal. He mentions it in chapter 8, in chapter 7, but he doesn't like he never uses it as, like I says many times. At the end of the Sefer, he spends 10 chapters dealing with all the different loves and fears. He speaks about 6 or 7, 8, maybe different kinds of love, and then 2 types of fear, but with all different gradations. He never mentions Yirsa Oynesh. He does not mention Yirsa Oynesh. And from everyone that I've spoken to, all the intelligent people that I speak to, Yirsa Oynesh does not make any difference to them. No one's scared of the Oynshim. Like no one cares about Gan Eden as well in our generation. We're too sophisticated. How can you be motivated by something that you've got no idea of? It's very, yeah, it's different in the old days when, you know, when we thought that a rainbow was whatever, or thunder was, you know, now we're so sophisticated, we know so much, and then all of a sudden they tell you, oh, all of the pleasures of this world, you're like, I don't care about pleasure anymore. I want meaning. I'm sick of pleasure. I've got pleasure coming out my ears. I live in LA. How much more pleasure do you want? You know, that's what we're saying. So we're not motivated by pleasure. We're not scared by punishment. So this is, and the Rebbe kind of was miscovering to this 200 years ago, and he's saying, okay, so in an emergency situation, have this tool. This is binary. Yeah, you click on that link, you end up so distant from the Ribbono Shel Olam. There's nothing farther in creation from Hashem than you. That little click on that link, and you're going to be looking at that stuff. Yeah, you have ended up so far from the Ribbono Shel Olam. You've got tigers and worms looking at you, thinking, ew. So then he goes and he brings it back in his usual positive way, Baruch Hashem, and he says, now let's take this to the positive. Okay, that's the key to not doing Averas. Remembering that you wouldn't, you know, that a snake wouldn't be able to look at you. That's quite an amazing thing. I have this in my shul now, in my where I daven this 13, 14-year-old kid who for years I used to joke with, we were really cool. All of a sudden, he's just stopped talking to me and he won't look at me. I don't know what I talk to his dad, nothing. He won't, every time I talk, he just runs away from me. I have no idea what I've done. He's a 13, 14-year-old kid, and it breaks my heart. It's really difficult. It's taken over my mind. Not like it's not like he's an important person. It's just there's a human being in the world who can't look at you. That's terrible. I don't know what I've done. I'm trying to work it out. But anyway, that's part of the tools we have. And then the Rebbe turns around and says, and let's just bring it back to putting ourselves into our avodas Hashem, into actually giving Hashem what he deserves, which means everything that we've got. So he says in Limud Torah, that would mean both quantity and quality. Learn a lot and learn deeply and chazer it. And don't be satisfied with not understanding. There are going to be Sadaim that you have where, you can't just practically, you need to keep moving a little bit. But there also needs to be Sadaim that you have where it's not about covering ground, and it's about getting the inyanim clear, mamash, getting ideas very, very clear and remembering them and being able to explain them and giving them over, etc. Yeah, that's called pushing yourself on a quality level. Then there's the quantity level, push yourself on the quantity level. Then he talks about tefillah. Yeah, he says it in a different place, it's called mitzvah nefesh, or matzah nefesh, wringing out your soul. What's the energy involved in tefillah? So there's again the quantity and the quality. Yeah, there's spend more time davening. And when we say spend more time davening, that doesn't mean Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei is always a result of, you never need to invest energy into Shemona Esrei because it's just the outcome of how you treated Pezukei de Zimra and Kriya Shema. Treat Pezukei de Zimra with the respect it deserves, and then you've got a chance at Kriya Shema and Bechoseh, and then Shemona Esrei is just going to be how it's meant to be. Yeah, Bittul in Atzilus and the Vekas. But if you're concentrating on Shemona Esrei and you're just reading like Zimra, like blah, 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 yeah, it's backwards. It doesn't make sense. Much more sensible. Take out a time, spend half an hour, 25 minutes, half an hour Pezukei de Zimra, say it, the whole thing. Make sure that you're concentrating, and if you're not, pull yourself back, especially for Ashrei and Yehi Covered. And Hashem will do amazing. I have it all the time. Hashem makes nisim for you, and he opens up your mind. Like the other day, I had this experience that Yehi Covered, where I was. How many times have I said Yehi Covered? And then this time I read it, and it was like, wow, Hashem just revealed to me all the secrets of the universe. Like, wow, it was like moedik. I think what happened was because I was embarrassed because by Baruch She'amar, I was so not thinking. I forgot to hold up my tzitzis. And there's always a guy in shul that I go to for him to say Amen to my bracha. And I was like, not phasing. What's it called? Not phasing out. What's the word? Not
Distracted.
like what? What's the word? Not phasing out. I was so...
Distracted. I don't know. You were
yeah, distracted. But how'd you say that? Something out. I was so whatever. I was so spaced out. I was so spaced out that I missed the whole thing. And then after I finished, I say, what was I saying? What's the siyum of Baruch She'amar? Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have my scissors in my hand. I'm like, oh man, what an idiot. And I was kind of embarrassed. And I think that opened up the channels for Yehi covered. That busha meant that I actually was like to
you deserved covered. You deserved the covered from having the busha.
Something like that. So anyway, so that's the inyan of tefillah, and then the inyan of tzedakah. Again, there's quantity and quality. Okay. There's the amount that you give, and then there's the way that you give it, and then there's the bikush that you go out your way to give it, etc. So really, he basically used Torah, tefillah, tzedakah, which is machshava, dibur, ma'isa. Okay, and that's, by the way, what Shimon HaTzadik said. Yeah, oilam al shlosh devarim al Torah al avoda al tzedakah. That's machshava, dibur, ma'isa. So the Rebbe basically tells us that this is the va'asei toiv. Just like you would rather suffer torture and death than bow to the idol, why then wouldn't you just give everything you've got to the Rebbeinu Shalom? Machshava dibur ma'isa. Dedicate yourself ultimately to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's why he made you. You're here to serve. You're not here to be served. You were created to serve Hashem. So let's do that with everything we've got in the most intelligent and the most effective way that we can. That's what the Rebbe is telling us, again, with this binary system. If you are involved in Torah and mitzvahs, then you are, in the worst case scenario, a makava for the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's an ultimate. That's or even more than that. Echad yachin and miyuchad with the mamash. That's not even. That's still. And remember, right now, that's still a kind of selfish level. We're not even talking about the fact that we're talking about when a person's in a cutness, so he's having to rely on his selfishness. We're not talking about you actually doing it for selfless purposes. This is the hiskashrus that I'm experiencing. This is the closest that I'm having. It's not about him right now. This is the break glass scenario. Yeah, this is when you're just being a normal human being and you're feeling distant, whatever it is. Yeah, you use this. You can use kind of jump off of the self. Use the self to. It's called the handle from the axe comes from the forest. Okay, and we'll just finish off by with this thought that he ends off chapter 25, which, like I said, is really the siyum of the sefer in a sense. From 26 onwards, it's a whole new sefer. Yeah, but the Rebbe's entire philosophy has basically been detailed from chapter 1 to chapter 25, and he finishes off by asking a question. When we were going into Eretz Yisrael, we got the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is the inyan of Mesiras Nefesh. So it says in the pasuk there, it says Pachtachem and Muachem Yitein Hashem, meaning Hashem has made the nations fearful of you, scared of you. So he asks the question: why is going into Eretz Yisrael predicated on the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, which is all about Mesiras Nefesh, when we know that all the nations are going to be scared of us, and it's going to be like we're not going to have to be Moser Nefesh. And he says like that. I'm going to read the words of the Rebbe. Ella mishum shekiyam haTorah mitzvoseh, rather because the doing of the Torah and its mitzvahs talui bezeh, is dependent on this. Sheyizkor tamid inyan mesiras nafshe laHashem al yichudoi, to remember always the idea of Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem, that you would do that for the sake of his unity. V'yiyeh kavua b'liboy tamid mamash. This should be mamash kavua in your heart always, mamash. Yoimam v'loyle lo yamish mizchroino. You should not allow this memory to leave your heart ever, not day or night. Because with this, you're going to be able to be oimed, the yetzer, lenatzcho tamid, to fight against him always, b'chol eis, b'chol shah, anytime. This is the secret weapon in Avodas Hashem. Secret weapon in Avodas Hashem means turn it binary. Remember that every mitzvah, every drop of Torah is ultimate hiskashos with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the opposite, even a davar kal d'Rabbanan, is the ultimate separation from the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that will stand you in difficult times to be omed and aside without having to get into the ultimate selfishness of Gehenna. And because the thing about Gehenna is, if you're worried about you experiencing pain and you care about you experiencing pleasure, then what could happen in the long run is that you start becoming really important to yourself. And it's only a matter of time when your pleasure and your pain, where your pleasure will cause you to an aveira, and your pain will stop you from doing a mitzvah. So this is a much more healthy kind of long-term plan, as opposed to getting involved in the idea of schav or oynesh, which the Rebbe is very against. And that's chapters 24 and 25.
You mentioned it at the end, this asay toiv, which is what I said at the beginning, and it does come kind of full circle, is basically that the Rebbe doesn't necessarily focus so much on the sor meirah, because if it's more about just be binary about the fact that you just need to do good and serve Hashem, and you won't come to doing the bad, because it's essentially.
He did say though that using this idea of the break from Hashem, that should stop you from doing the Sumeirah. He did say that in chapter 24.
Right. Okay.
Just to get one, just to go with what you're saying for a second, my Rebbe said many times that by the Ten Commandments, it says, don't murder, don't steal, don't, he said it all in all four of those things were in one pasuk. He's like, and Romanus was saying, look, Hashem's look, don't murder, don't steal, don't do niyuv, don't. Finished. Okay, done. Now let's get on with what it's all about. That's not our Inyan. That's not our ASIC. And like you said, it's very true what you're saying. I was just saying he wasn't really saying that here so much. But what you're saying is 100% true. Is be completely dedicate yourself to the avoiders, to giving what you can, to really pushing in the asay toiv. And you'll start becoming mamash holy. You'll start becoming,
and you won't want to be clicking that link.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, shkoyach.
Okay, shkoyach. Any questions? No,
shkoyach. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Okay,
Have a good day.
You too. Cool.